Hi, how are you enjoying the party tonight? Oh, that's excellent. I'm glad that you're enjoying yourself. Do you like music? Yeah, you do? Oh, you like heavy metal music. That's fantastic. That's great. Are you a relatively new fan? Are you somebody who just started along? No, you've been around for a while? How long? Just about a year. You're not a veteran yet. Well, it's okay. I love music, as you probably know. And there are a lot of things that I could tell a individual such as yourself, somebody who perhaps has just discovered heavy metal, either that or somebody who's been maybe into music for a couple of years, but maybe feels as though there's greener pastures out there, different things that you can explore, but you don't know where to start. You don't know what to do. You kind of feel as though you're boxed in a little bit, and you might need a little bit of advice. Does that sound like you? Yeah, a little bit? Well, in today's society, that can be kind of an easy thing to feel. Even though we have a wealth of music that's at our disposal through Spotify, YouTube, the internet, other types of resources, not to mention, you can go into a music store still and just sample, 30-second clips of almost every CD that's in there. It's easy to feel a little bit bogged down by one simple thing. With all this wealth out there, where do we begin? Where do we start? And this is something that can become so overwhelming to the point that you just don't even start at all. Believe me, I know. I have a huge music collection, and I actually fall victim to another problem, and that's the fact that I have so much that, whenever I want to listen to something, I'm not sure what I want to listen to because there's at least 10 or 12 choices that I could really feel at that moment. So, let me talk to you a little bit and give you a couple of words of wisdom that I can really impart not only on a younger fan such as yourself, of music or of metal, but also something that perhaps some of the old-time veterans, the people that have been out there and maybe have been a little bit argumentative over the past decade or so of their lives can really, really, really use to hear again. Something that they were probably told whenever they were younger. I'm going to make this a little bit more geared towards heavy metal for you, since you said that you're a relatively new fan. So, consider these words of wisdom that every metal fan should ever hear. The first thing I'm going to say to you is that you've probably gotten into this genre because of a number of hot-button bands. Hot-button bands that you either heard on the radio or perhaps were recommended to from a friend that has heard them on the radio. Either way, there has been some sort of exposure that has come upon you, whether it be through friend or not, of a band that has a lot of reputation behind them. Either that or are already considered to be a pretty big stalwart in the genre. It's very, very seldom that you enter into a community such as this one by hearing something that's so far underground that it's nearly unrecognizable, something that you heard for the first time and you immediately fell in love with that sounded like it's very, very difficult. It's kind of a shock to the system, so you probably gradually made your way in. The very first thing that I can say to you is don't stop with where you're at right now. So many people these days, and really throughout the generations, have stopped because they found that popular, that very, accessible version of heavy metal was the only thing that really sounded good to them. And mainly it's because of a failure to actually go out there and find something else that sounds good to them. They basically have kind of cornered themselves a little bit. Consider this. Nu metal had actually a profound influence on me. Yeah, I'm, reviewing all of these bands that you say that you've never heard of, and yet I was listening to Disturbed, I listened to Korn, I've listened to Godsmack. I knew of all of those bands whenever they first came out. They were on the radio. I have old, cassette tapes that I recorded some of their songs off of the radio of back in the late 1990s. It was definitely a very good gateway drug. But that was the thing. The minute that I started to explore this new and foreign concept, even though it was nu metal and not actual metal, I wanted to know more about this genre. My curiosity really piqued me, so it was something where I needed to dig deeper. And usually whenever you dig deeper, you find a couple more bands that are perhaps a little bit more widely recognized, and you go from there. In my case, it was Metallica, it was Megadeth, it was Slayer, the thrash metal side of things, and as I continued to get more and more recommendations that took me deeper and deeper down, I started to find a fierce love for thrash metal, and then expanded it even further into the realms of death metal and, progressive metal, which remains to be one of my true loves to this day. And really, it was a way in which I was able to build a very diverse collection and a diverse appreciation for all forms of music in the heavy metal universe, including those that to many people may not seem like they should be considered metal at all, but in actuality, they kind of are. So, all I would say firstly is don't stop with wherever you're at. Don't stop with just this gateway drug. This is one time whenever you can actually go deeper and deeper into the hard stuff, and it's perfectly safe. It isn't like, getting into actual drugs or getting into pop music where 1 minute you're listening to an old Michael Bolton record and then all of a sudden you're worshipping the ground that Harry Styles walks on. Yeah, you don't have to worry about that happening to you. You're not going to end up 35 years old in your mom's basement dancing around in a suit that probably was best designed for Lady Gaga. No, instead there's a good chance that if you're still living in your mom's basement at 35, you'll still be jamming out the old Cannibal Corpse records with, a nice, awesome jacket and a bunch of posters and, actually living a pretty decent life, even though most people will probably find you to be a freeloader. Yeah, it's actually kind of cool. I myself don't live in a basement. I myself actually live in a nice 2-floor apartment and I have, records and all sorts of memorabilia everywhere, but that's just me. The second thing that I'm going to say to you is that for your love of metal, you're definitely going to get a certain amount of persecution. Now, you might think with the way in which the world and the internet kind of is showcasing themselves these days is that the persecution actually lies more to pop fans, because non-pop fans or pop fans that don't like the same pop as other pop fans are just, vicious little bitches and bastards. Little animals that just decide to inbreed and infight amongst one another and just cause all sorts of havoc. You might also see that it's kind of a wasteland out there that a lot of people just fight for no good reason. Well, this is something that's going to happen based around you liking metal as well. And it's going to be for reasons that have been around for decades and reasons that are recent. The recent reasons are basically because you may listen to a brand of metal that other people consider to be either elitist or other people believe to be not true metal or fake or this or that. The very first thing that I'm going to say about that is if they think that nu metal, deathcore, and metalcore aren't actually metal, they're wrong. All three of those subgenres are metal, and all three of those subgenres actually had a profound and important place in the heavy metal universe, principally because it was something that helped give metal a little bit of exposure. Now, while true metal veterans are a little bit irritated by these little trend-worthy types of things, they need to remember the fact that thrash metal itself was a trend-worthy thing in the 1980s. They have to remember that death metal, for a small subsection of America at least, was a trend-worthy thing in the early 1990s. This is something where any great scene that really comes out kind of bubbles from a bit of a trend thing, and it's something that evolves and kind of drives a generation. It's something where in 10 or 20 years you might hear a metalcore band out there that's doing something that's absolutely ridiculous, something that actually hails them and makes them one of the next great bands. And it's all based around the stuff that they heard here in the early 2000s. Just like the thrash revival that happened with the original thrash coming in 1980, and now a bunch of new bands coming along, basically the second generation if you want to call that, whenever in reality we're really on the 4th or 5th generation, but we're going with generations of individuals, of people, not generations of bands. But the revival is coming through, and there's new bands, and they are actually driving quite a lot of popularity, not to mention really bringing thrash back from the brink of potential extinction. So yeah, this is something where you're going to get persecuted also because of the fact that heavy metal is commonplace, eluded with evil. It's something that is just tale as old as time. Anything that involves evil, anything that involves Satan, anything that involves something that's anti-religious, and this is something that can be true of just about any style of music aside from Christian contemporary, is going to be willing, these individuals are going to be willing to laud you as the devil or devil worship practicing and things like that. Hell, I even said that about Harry Potter and Twilight. Just be prepared for that. If your parents happen to be super duper Christian conservative or something like that, just be prepared for a lot of wars. It may not seem like it's worth it, but it really is, because it's a freeing experience, and it's actually something where, even within the heavy metal universe, you can still maintain your faith and not actually feel as though you're doing anything wrong. Remember, music is music. What you decide to do based around what you hear is really on you. Thirdly, and finally, there is a certain communal aspect to heavy metal that is absolutely tremendous. And if you're seeing this, then there's a good chance that you already understand that. You already understand that there is a wealth of individuals that are willing to talk about this genre at length on many, many social media outlets, on video sharing sites, not to mention there's a lot of people that you could talk to in the old style, the old way of face-to-face about heavy metal, and they're going to promote it with a certain level of excitement and a certain level of real praise and joy that really you might not be able to see in a lot of other places. You see, the problem with pop music and the problem with music that has a grand number of fans is that there's not that much of a communal aspect to it. Sure, you might be a fan base, and sure, you all might have mutual appreciation for one artist, but there's a good opportunity that if you meet one of those artists on the street, you're not going to really talk about it all that much. However, this is really different for heavy metal. You can immediately tell a metalhead, you can usually spot them out of a crowd, And if you can't, usually you'll be able to tell once they go over to the metal section at your local record store. And usually after that occurs, once you present a nice little icebreaker, you can easily talk to them about metal for hours. Hell, this is the type of thing that fosters friendships. This is the type of thing that foster, somebody that you can go to shows with. This is certainly something that is one thing that I promote about this all the more. The reason why the community is one that seems really tight-knit is because it's a community that's not really of millions and billions. It's certainly one that is in the millions, and it's certainly one that encompasses a bigger reach in this world than I think a lot of people really believe. However, it's because we all have an appreciation for an entire genre of music. We all have an appreciation for exploring multiple artists as opposed to just staying refined to just one. That's what heavy metal really is all about. It's about the exploration. It's about the process. It's about finding the next and the next and the next band that really is going to influence your life. This isn't something where you just latch on to one band and that's all the farther that you go. That doesn't make you metal whatsoever. That makes you a fan of one band. So if you find that you're a really, really big Slayer fan but you don't listen to any other metal, all you really are is a really big Slayer fan. You're not a metalhead. You're a Slayer fan. Metal is all about this the exploratory process, principally because there is such a wealth out there, and not to mention, there's a lot of difference out there. There's a lot of different subgenres to heavy metal, just like there's a whole lot of different subgenres to various other styles of music. However, the ones that are in heavy metal are divided a little bit more frequently than others. It's something where you could listen to one thing and actually have a differing opinion of what the subgenre is than your next door neighbor, if they happen to also be a metal fan. It's something where you can actually debate about this, and while the debates can seem kind of childish and stupid, which in most cases they happen to be, it's one thing that it's also you guys promoting and talking and having a vast interest in the music. You really care about it a lot. And that's something else that's very cool about metal fans. They care a lot about the music. It's not something that's all about the person's image. It's not something that's all about what they do for either the community or in front of a camera or what they say on Entertainment Tonight or something like that. It's all about the music. Are these guys making great music? Are these guys actually making music that is worth something, or is the music just, kind of alright or utter shit? That's the reason why whenever you explore this channel a little bit further, you're going to discover that there's a lot of opinion that right here is based around how something is kind of perceived, how it is felt, a very end-user style, as opposed to something that is extremely professional and basically just sucks the dick of everybody because you don't want a band to be mad at you. So hopefully you're taking on this whole heavy metal universe and this whole heavy metal idea extremely seriously. Hopefully this isn't something that's just a phase in your life, and hopefully you're also willing to explore some other styles of music as well. Yeah, that is one thing that I need to say to other metal fans as well. You can actually explore other styles of music while still being a metal fan, and that doesn't repeal your metalhead status. I myself listen to a little bit of everything. I like a little bit of rap music, whether it be above or underground. I love a lot of indie music. I listen to a little bit of pop even, and shit, jazz, blues, hell, even a couple of country artists. I listen to a little bit of everything, but heavy metal still is my principal influence. It's still the one thing that kind of dictates my life a lot more than the others. It's the one thing that I really look at first, the first section that I go to in a music store, not to mention the first thing that usually is on my lips whenever I want to talk music. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the only style of music that you can listen to. So if you're coming into this whole metalhead idea while still being a fan of, say, Michael Jackson or something like that, don't feel as though you have to stop listening to Michael Jackson now that you're a metal fan. In fact, if anything, whenever you listen to Michael Jackson, you'll probably end up appreciating him a lot more. You see, as a metalhead, you're going to appreciate musical value a whole hell of a lot more. It's not just going to be about a beat that makes you want to booty shake or do whatever. It's not going to be about lyrics that you can, quote for Facebook. This is instead going to be something where it's all about how damn good the music is, how the music affects you, whether it be emotionally, whether it be physically, if you really want to get a little bit, violent, either that or emotional about it or whatever it may be, or really how it affects you psychologically. Because music as a whole affects you psychologically, not just one particular style. The psychological influence of heavy metal music may particularly be because you listen to something that's so beautiful that it overcomes you with emotion and perhaps makes you want to get into the artistry of metal music yourself. So hopefully this is something where you are going to be a long-lasting member of this metal community, and I certainly extend this to you. I certainly believe that you would be a fitting and great addition, just as long as you promise to me that you don't let your metal journey stop here with one little subsection of metal, and actually explore the vast, unexplored territory, for you at least, that awaits you. So, would you like to take this journey with me?